Concealed within the mysteries of Kala Chakra, the ancient inhabitants of Shambhala believed each god of our multiverse was a soul who had traversed 21,600 simultaneous lifetimes throughout multifarious histories, alternate realities, and timelines as multitudinous creatures and forms. All of these lives would occur within a given sphere of the space-time continuum, and when an individual would awaken to the ultimate truth, in all of these lives simultaneously, the thousand-petal lotus would unfurl, revealing the self as Vairocana Buddha, seated beneath the Bodhi tree, whose body consisted of 1,001 Buddhas, seated upon the 1,001 petals, which each contained 100 million worlds. Each of these petals feathered the scales of the cosmic feathered serpent, and this feathered serpent was known throughout all the ancient world. In Joseph Campbell's Hero with 1,000 Faces, he proposed an idea he called the monomyth, which suggested that all stories are emanations of eternal recurrence, as each individual moves through various phases of growth as the hero of their own adventure in consciousness. The anomyth is the amalgamation of these adventures, as we, conscious evolving beings, are each the hero and god of our own personal universe, and each of our own unique stories feather the cosmic serpent as ITh expands infinitely into the void. Welcome to the ॐÄNoMYTH of oV'Ψ'Th. Hi, welcome to the ॐÄNoMYTH of oV'Ψ'Th. This is episode 2, Transcending Duality Consciousness. The biggest problem and challenge that we face right now in the evolution of humanity in general is the transcendence of duality consciousness. In the first episode, I provided a very clear test of showing how duality consciousness works and what actually triggers this within yourself. The thing is, a duality consciousness is the inherent belief that there is opposition to you and your belief system and the expression of your inherent soul force momentum in this reality. We've all heard that for every action there's an equal and opposite reaction, which is true on one level of the existence of the reality. However, there are multidimensional forms and existences that are available that continually change this, and continually move and change and express themselves in new ways as the energy of the soul force, gaining experience and gaining its momentum, breaks through the Taurus barriers into higher dimensions of existence and expressions. So today we're going to talk a bit more about this duality consciousness and what causes it and what its effects are. The major question that has dominated human history from the very beginning of our existence has been whether or not this universe is based completely off of chaos, completely random chance, or whether our universe is based off of a supersymmetry, crystalline order in which everything has its perfect place and everything has its perfect expression. In the last few years, with the tests that have been made with the God particle, we discovered essentially that the universe exists in both of these phases simultaneously. The universe is supersymmetry while simultaneously expressing itself in pure chaos. If you think closely about your life experiences, it likely matches this almost exactly. Miraculous things never cease to occur, but at the same time, the chaos always rears its hand, making us live infinitely in the unknown. The reason for this is if the universe was consisted entirely of supersymmetry alone, was based only upon order, what would happen is all of the atoms and everything in the entire universe would arrange itself in one single crystalline structure, which would make a crystal grid throughout all of existence and all of space and time. With this, without the ability to cause movement, without any change, it would be stuck and stagnant like this forever. And this is the reason that the black sun exists, or antimatter. The reason for antimatter is that antimatter breaks up this crystalline structure. And although the essential balance and harmony of the universe is always maintained, the universe is always in perfect equilibrium, as symbolized Kabbalistically by absolute zero. Now, the black sun, or the antimatter, has the ability to move without pattern, which is necessary for growth. Any new synapses movement, anything new that we gain in our experience is caused by the neurons in your brain and the electrons and the electricity that moves through us, moving in a different pattern than it previously had done. Anything that we do according to memory or according to practice is when the energy follows the exact electrical patterns that were trained and repeated and then become reinforced through the repeated use. And however useful this may be, and it is in developing our skills and like learning to essentially get a general idea of how the universe works, is never entirely accurate because of the existence of the black sun. Now, the black sun exists in each and every one of us, and it is the very source of that philosophical and moral debate within yourself of right and wrong. The inherent feeling that one thing must be better than another thing. Now, the role of the black sun is that once it appears, it creates multiversal black holes at every vortex between all parallel realities and space-time continuums. These black holes sit right in the center of the Bardo, or the intermediate states. Therefore, when you're looking at this graph, every single circle that touches another circle, at that point where it touches, there is a black hole created, and through that black hole, it inverts the entire astral light through that black hole to manifest and project out as a physical reality upon the walls of space-time. Now, since the spiritual revolution in the 1960s, we've all become well aware of the standard, 7 or 8 chakra system that exists within the human body. However, what we learn from the higher chakra systems or the higher yogas of Buddhism, for example, like the Kala Chakra Tantra, is that there's actually 21,600 chakras that exist just in the regular human body system. Now, within this system, there's 3 distinct channels. There's the central channel where the white and red bodhicitta exist. This is essentially the 2 forces that put tension upon each other that create the pink phenomenon that exists within us, which is that spark of life. This spark, this pink bodhicitta, the mixture of the red and white bodhicitta, is actually what activates the life force around the black sun, which takes place in the appearance of neon lights, beginning with pink, then flashing with an electric blue, and then going into a chartreuse and bringing in shades of sort of an unknown purple, a purple beyond purple, which eventually activates this black sun until it becomes essentially a single electric blue orb that exists within us. Now, when this electric blue orb is activated, we are alive. And in this state, we're actually immortal. But when the tensions are placed upon these bodhicitta channels, the red and white get pulled apart. And when one becomes outbalanced to the other, when the white bodhicitta is too high or the red bodhicitta is too high, that is when accidents are attracted to us. That's when death comes knocking at the door. Now, there are other 2 main channels in the body as well. The second is the prana channel, which runs as, essentially like the Caducees, winding as twin serpents, originating from Pitta and Ingala, as is taught in the Shiva Samhita, and creating, the life force energies or the pranic fields that we depend on also for our existence. Gurdjieff calls this second being food, essentially. And then the third one is the Garana channels, this is essentially that love energy that is the magnetism that holds everything together. Now, once these 21,600 chakras are activated within the system, what happens is that the Merkaba field, which is the human light field that exists around each being, can then pop out as disk and becomes essentially a universe of its own. When this happens, You, the being who has activated these chakra points, which are nothing more than gravitational fields that pull specific energies and wind them in together and creates a sort of organic, almost clock-like system that holds the being and the experiences together. Now, when this comes to this realization and realize that this entire light field is manifesting in a physical form as a holographic projection, we cast our eyes back into this fifth dimensional holographic field and find the source is this sixth dimensional God form or deity, essentially, our conception, which has been built and is holding its place as an anchor within the astral light. Now, when we've integrated with the six-dimensional God form, we come into a state of consciousness in which we're able to actually see the way that the energies affect and shape the physical reality. This is the state of consciousness that a lot of the higher dimensional and more developed beings on Sirius are experiencing. Many of the beings on Pleiades also experience it in this same sort of way. It is here that you can actually see how the literal relations of the geometries, which are just relations between different spheres of space-time and realities, create wavelengths and vibrations that start to move in a double helix pattern, very similar to the DNA, which actually activates specific patterns and specific shapes from within the astral sun. And these shapes start to give form to our basic compounds of the structure of our atoms and the structure of our molecules. And eventually these waveforms even literally become the physical manifestation of our DNA within our cells, which then the cells are programmed with that specific vibration and carry out its function appropriately. As you know, all cells can be programmed with any program whatsoever. They are not dependent upon, they're not just created to have a certain purpose. They fulfill the function in which they're programmed to fulfill. This is the same way as humans are essentially cells within a higher dimensional sphere of the universe. We're cells to our solar system, just as our solar system is a cell to the entire Milky Way. And so we have to look at this, that this is all vibration and this is all the source. But also we realize that us being this source of this physical projection, of this holographic projection into our five sense reality, that this is only energy that is eclipsing the truth. And what it's finding is what it's eclipsing is the actual source of the ninth dimensional black hole, which is the creation point of the very eighth dimensional torus in which our realities exist to begin with. Once we realize that this ninth dimensional black hole is the actual source of everything that we've ever experienced, is the source of all structures, all forms, and it's even the source of light. This is what triggers the process which is called in magic the cross of the abyss, in which the Merkabah field, or our universal light field, begins to move away from our focus upon this third dimensional reality and begins to center itself again back within the black hole. Essentially, within a black hole, all energy gets trapped in singularity and must remain there forever. So once this process begins, the consciousness has to move into this black hole and has to carry with it this pink bodhicitta, the perfect balance of the red and white in the central channel. And if this is done, it activates within the soul and activates this black sun within our own multiverse. And this is what makes us essentially God of our own universe. This is when we can create at will. But this has to be completely anchored in the actual source. And this is that very 0 point. This is why Tesla was able to pull electricity out from this 0 point, is that he discovered this source, that the source was within, it's not without. And when we realize that all the infinite power is already within us, and all we have to do is really activate those powers to experience anything we want in this life, you see immediately how duality is transcended. It doesn't matter what the other expressions of other people are doing. What matters is the expression of your experience within your own universe. And from here we see that all of the patterns, all of the experiences, everything that's occurring in all the alternate realities, the Bardo states, the multidimensional expressions of various universes with creatures of all kinds, are all dancing together as one. Now, the way this holographic projection works is explained in detail in Excalibur. Here on page 236 in my copy, I think it's different in the current copy, but here we have a diagram of projector schematics. Think of this in the terms of a camera. In a camera, you have a light source, an imagery medium, a focusing mechanism, and a display medium. This is everything that there is to a camera. Light, image, focusing, and something to project it upon. That's it. Our universe works in the very same way. The light source, or a kether, right, as represented in the occult, is sourced from that black hole. It's the black hole inverting in on itself, in which, as it crosses this abyss, it goes into the imagery medium, which is the universal mind, or ruach. These are all the energies and vibrations that take place within the astral suns. Once these astral suns are concentrated, they come into the focusing mechanism known as Yesod, in which they re-enter a flower of life pattern as they project through the black hole back onto the space-time continuum. And this is done by going into the flower of life pattern, which then continues to cork itself outward, cork itself again, continues to cork its pattern around in multiple rotations until it creates its own individual torus, which then creates the duality, or the polarities, right? Our positive and our negative one expressions. And this is the source of electromagnetism, which then leads to the creation of atoms. The other effect that the black sun has is that it is also the reason why we experience death and mortality. Thus, all of the magic formulas, or all of the religious ideals, everything we've aimed at in mystic union with the divine over the last few centuries or even thousands of years, has been aimed at routing out this black sun from within us, to find immortality by getting rid of the darkness entirely, shining our light so bright that the darkness just disappears. But the fact is that to do that would be to annihilate life in its very essence. We can't delete the black sun, we can't get rid of it, otherwise we would all cease to exist. It's the only reason we're here to begin with. The problem that we experience when we go into this duality consciousness, when we experience these oppositions in all things and this antagonism towards that which is other, is that it creates a split in our consciousness, which G.I. Gurdjieff coined jarclone. Now, it's not a division into two that takes place, it's actually a division of the pure source awareness into three. This third dimensional reality, the one that we can experience, the one that we can see, the one that we can taste, the one that we can touch, this is the one that the majority of people experience as the full sense of their reality. But the truth is that they're neglecting the consciousness that exists on these various levels, including the 6th and the 9th dimension. Now, the consciousness which exists in this split, the median of the 9th and the 3rd dimension, is what is essentially our holy guardian angel, what is known in magic, but essentially what this is our conception of God. This is everything that we believe God is. This is our ideal about reality. Now, most mystic attainment and almost every religion that we have on our planet today aims at this mystic union with this conception, the one that we read about in the scriptures, the one we read about and are taught about in Sunday school. It's this conception alone in which we basically idealize this conception and we antagonize and call everything else that's not this devil. Now, the problem with this is once we reach this mystic union and this attainment with this 6th-dimensional God form, that we actually come into direct contact with this source and then integrate it, realizing that it is nothing more than ourself. This is what places us at tension with the rest of reality, because this is nothing but a positive one expression, which is negative one expression then is everything else that it is not. And the truth of the reality is the entirety of the equation and not just the positive one expression. If we get locked in on this, it's the very source of that jarclome. It's creating that tension, of that division of saying, okay, I like this part of my reality. I like picking apples off a tree and I like the sweet way that they taste. But I hate the trash on the street. I hate this, and this is not part of my reality. That is evil. And by creating this duality with what is in existence, you create a separation from the truth. And this allows you to ignore these very important facts of your actual environment, of your actual life, as this is now created as the other, something other than you, when in fact it is the expression of you. Right now in our society, we hear again and again about cultural appropriation, for example. We hear about things being derivative upon other ideas. But the fact is the entire experience of all souls within this reality is exactly appropriation and the amalgamation of all experiences that are combined, one, into the DNA, and then two, in the knowledge and information that we pass down to each other. And so everything is derivative in its essence. Everything has been appropriated from another culture. You cannot find a single culture that exists that didn't bring its ideas from a previous culture that existed before that one. Period. Thus, right now, our experience in this global communicative economic game sphere, essentially, that we've created, is that we must learn to not only not distinguish between these experiences and try to box them in according to our certain birth conditions or nationalities or where we live or borders, which are just arbitrary lines drawn by humans attempting to put order on what they appear to be a chaotic universe. It's just a way that we make ourselves feel better. That's the whole source of any separation based off of, say, color of skin or off of color of eyes or any mix whatsoever from male to female. All of these attempts to put one above another is only increasing our tension that's created by that black sun as we're continually moving into duality consciousness rather than singularity consciousness, which is expressive of all energies. Now finally, our last point here. How do I know these things? How have I been able to trace this out, and where is this information coming from? All I can tell you is that I know it from experience. I literally have watched it. I have watched the black sun create through the astral suns. I have watched the light and the patterns be reflected outward. I have viewed the holographic projection take place to the creation of atoms, to the creation of compounds, to the movement of Hadit, or the eternal motion of the universe going in and expressing itself through reality. You can view all of this yourself within your own being. And that is the true key, is that all of these universal forces are already inside of you.